So just northwest of Stoneburg at this time is where they're saying the rotational area is. And I mean, let's see if we can see Stoneburg right here. No, we can't. So let's go ahead and go back to the regular or the regular max product there, Noah, if we can. But that's going to be our area where we're seeing the rotation right there between those greens and reds. So let's see. And in any minute here, we'll get the tornado warning that's coming in. Could you go ahead and let me know which highway this is that's moving south from Ringgold down towards Stoneburg so we can talk about that? Because this is 287 right here. I'm not sure.
81.
81, thank you. All right, so zoom back in because it's going to be crossing 280 or 81 at any point here. So, man, it is messy. It's hard to see. And this is another thing that I want to point out here. It doesn't look great on the reflectivity, and a lot of times it doesn't look great on the reflectivity product. The regular radar product you're used to seeing is because it's probably wrapped in some rain at this point, so it might be hard to see as well. And so even though we got Kyle down there trying to see it, it might be a little bit more difficult to see. So let's track this. Start that a little bit further off to the east there, Noah, if you can.
Okay.
And then we'll try to see if we can pan that out a little bit better. I'm guessing you got the direction of the storm, but it's probably going to get to Stoneburg a little bit faster than 733.
They've got it moving due east.
Yeah. So I want you to start that same cone, though, but start a little bit further off to the east, like start the original part of the cone. So you might have to take it off all the way off the screen.
I'm just trying to find the...
Yeah, the eraser's on the far right side of the toolbar.
Let's...
Okay. So... right now, we still have the tornado warning. So for Stoneburg, you're about to get issued a tornado warning here. Montague proper, you're pretty far away. I know this one says 803, and then so 803 right there for Montague proper. That's probably going to be a little bit closer to about 10 minutes earlier than that. It's probably going to be closer to 750. You need some help there, Noah?
Yeah, I'm just not seeing the...
So,
oh, there it is.
You found it? Okay.
Yeah, got it.
Good. Alrighty. So... let's start it a little bit. Let's start it almost directly over Stoneburg, because right now in Stoneburg, I want you to be in your safe spot. Remember, away from the exterior walls and windows, usually a small bathroom, small closet. It's not always about the room, though, that you pick. It's about how many walls are between you and the outside of your home.
There we go, Michael. The tornado warning has been extended.
Tornado warning does include Bowie. So they have this on a pretty southeasterly track. I'm guessing that's what they're doing with the warn on forecast.
Yeah,
and that's what they use the forecast models here to try to predict the future motion of the storm.
Okay,
and
so the tornado warning issued originally had it moving east at 20 miles per hour. Now the one in Fort Worth is saying moving east at 35 miles per hour.
Okay, so it's speeding up a little bit, which I could tell based on the radar there. They issued that pretty far north. So they're saying circulation northwest. Oh, so there's some north. So we got to watch this too. There's apparently some rotation northwest of Nakona that we got to keep an eye on too. Okay, so let's go ahead and zoom this out all the way. Drop that a little bit further to the south because we don't necessarily. Okay. So do it again, but drop it a little bit further south to where it's really in the warning. Because I guess they're basically doing the warn on forecast thing where the forecast, I mean pan it south. So make it go east southeast there through the warning.
Okay,
yeah.
Gotcha.
All right, let's take Kyle's shot while Noah's getting that set up. Okay, so we can see a pretty large storm. Obviously, it's a low storm. It's definitely surface based. Based on that. And by surface based, I mean it's going to be having it's going to have circulations that could easily get down towards the surface. It's gathering all the energy at the surface. All right, Kyle, are you on the line? What are you seeing so far?
Yeah, right now the circulation is going to be right over 287, just west of 174. I'm in Bowie. I'm going to stay put here because they've issued that warning for Bowie. So we're going to stay on it, and back to you, Michael.
Okay, wait, you said you were in Bowie? Sorry, I was looking at something.
It's okay. Yeah, we're in Bowie. We're on the west side of Bowie right now, right at 287 and 174. This is where the circulation is, just west of Bowie here.
All right, thank you very much, Kyle. So let's go ahead and look at this for a second. Let's zoom in a little bit more on that. So right now you got Stoneburg, 7:22 p.m. Salona there at 7:42. Forestburg way down the line at 7:59. And then by then it should get to the edge of Montague County. So the rotational area is, we got a new tornado warning. You see it? Yep, Nakona, you're now included in the new tornado warning. That's the other circulation that they were just talking about in the National Weather Service. Bonita, you're also in that tornado warning. It does not include any portion of southeastern Jefferson County. A lot of that reason is probably because that is a different forecast office up there in Norman, and this is issued by the forecast office in Fort Worth. So let's go ahead and switch back over to the velocity product here now that we've seen that. Let's go ahead and take that. Okay. I'm in control of this one. All right, there's our circulation. It's pretty clear. It's still a little messy. I might actually move to the Fort Worth radar, which will take me just a second here, so we can get a better view, because I think we might get a better view on the Fort Worth radar.
Is
Okay.
that a different tornado warning?
Yes, I mean, there's 2 tornado warnings right now.
Yeah, I'm just the chat's kind of
Oh, they're kind of confusing everything up right now.
okay because they're both have the same hail size. They're both moving east at 35 miles per hour.
That makes them difficult to figure out which one they're talking about.
It almost looks like the same warning.
Yeah,
But there's one for Cook and Montague, and there's one for just Montague. So
yeah. So those are 2 tornado warnings. One in the northern portion of the county, one in the southern portion. So now we're looking at the Fort Worth radar, and it's a little messy. We call this purple area range folding. It's basically a blind spot for us right now in the radar. But you can see the velocity signature that's further off to the north. You got the air that's moving towards the radar down in Fort Worth. The air that's moving away from the radar up in Fort Worth too. So Nakona, you got to be in your safe spot. If you haven't reviewed this again, I know a lot of people join coverage as they're getting warnings, as they're hearing sirens. Remember, you want to be in the interior part of your home, away from exterior walls and windows. Usually a small bathroom, small closet. It's not always about the room that you pick. It's more about how many walls are between you and the outside of your home. Now, if you have a storm shelter or something that's underground, that's obviously going to be the best spot to be. But if you don't have that, you'll be fine and just get into the center of your home, away from those exterior walls and windows. If you do live in an apartment building or a multi-floor building, you definitely want to be in the lowest part of that too. You want to try to get down to the first floor. You don't want to be in the second floor of a building right now with a tornado on the ground. So we don't have this one in the northern portions confirmed on the ground. The southern warning did at one point at least was observed a tornado on the ground. I haven't heard any more recent reports, though, if it is still the case. So let's go ahead and look back over to Norman office, see what they've had anything. Okay, so that's back towards when that might be an old report there, as they were talking about. Yeah, that's an old report from Windthorst. So I'm going to go back to the Frederick radar, because right now the Fort Worth radar is also just as messy. And I think we'll get a little bit better view from the Frederick radar. All right, so there's still these 3 circulations that we're watching. So this one that's technically, he was east-southeast of Windthorst. Let me zoom out a little bit more. It's a little bit different on TV than it is on my screen. So we got this one that's in the southernmost portions of Archer County. It's trying to develop something that is not strong enough to warrant a tornado warning right now. What we do have, though, is this circulation that's a little bit messy, but there's a little circulation in there. And then we got this one up towards Nakona. Anytime we see these greens and reds next to each other like this, those are the rotational areas that we're watching for. So it does include Nakona. Let's go back over this. Bowie, right now, the rotational area is well north of you, but overall, you're still in the warning. So we want you to be in that safe spot. If you want to keep up to date on the coverage, go ahead and turn that TV up pretty loud. You'll hear me talking. I will clear areas as you get cleared from your tornado warning and let you know that you're no longer under that warning. But I really want you to be in that safe spot of your home at this time. So we look further off to the north. Nakona, I mean, if you're not in your safe spot right now, you need to be there as soon as possible. Because remember, if you're watching this on cable or satellite, either way, you're probably going to see it on like a 30-second delay based on what I'm saying. Satellite probably closer to a 45-second to 1 minute delay. If you're watching this via any type of internet, via Facebook, via streaming, any of the streaming services that are out there now, you're probably seeing it on more like a 2-minute delay. So I want you to keep that in mind when I'm talking about here, is that some of this is going to be old information from a couple minutes ago. So you might want to add a couple minutes to that time frame.
You want to be preemptive in all of this.
Absolutely. So let's go ahead and go back to our regular product now. Let's go back to the regular max product, because the velocity is also just as messy. Let's stay zoomed out here.
Okay.
If you're in Montague County, no, go back to the Montague one. Stay zoomed out. Show both warnings.
Okay. Gotcha.
If you are in Montague County right now, I just want to point this out to you. You are likely under a tornado warning. If I haven't called out your town, I think St. Joe. Zoom into the eastern portion. St. Joe might be between these two. I think, yeah, St. Joe is right between the 2 warnings. That's south and north. St. Joe, you still need to be aware, though. I mean, if you have a tornado warning up to your north and to your south, excuse me, you obviously need to keep that in mind. But overall, Sunset, you're on the border of these warnings too. But if you're not Sunset or St. Joe right now, you're under a tornado warning. You need to get to that safe spot in Montague County. Very rarely do we see 2 tornado warnings, so covering almost the entire county. Okay, so here's some of the time frame again. 7:44 for Montague proper. You get 8:04 there for Forestburg, and then it starts to make its way east out of the county. Forestburg is on the far eastern portions of Montague County. I'm going to go ahead and grab over my water. Noah, if you want to talk for a second while I grab this water.
Very rare that we see two tornado warnings like this, but they mentioned in chat that the rotation actually split in that storm, and they said that's why they issued the second tornado warning up for this storm here in Nakona. Let's go ahead and do a time lapse of the one in Nakona, so you can get an update on that. Let me just get up here. So this one was moving at the same rate as the one further to the south, so 35 miles per hour due east. So there's all your time lapses. Nakona proper within the next few minutes. Bonita, about 7:47. You got Caps Corner. You're going to be very close to the hour on 7:56. Leon and Dunbar, you guys are all in the path of this tornado warning at the moment, and could be in the path of this tornado as it currently moves on the trajectory that it is. Nothing.
Yeah, another thing we want to keep in mind with these storms is there's still the potential for some tennis ball sized hail.
Yes. Just because our main focus is on these tornadoes doesn't mean that hail and and those storms are not still a threat.
And we've talked a lot about these tornado warnings. Take me back down to the south, down towards, because they just issued a new warning on that one in southern Clay. So let's go a little bit south, down towards Clay County.
Yep. Just give me 1 second. There we go.
Okay, so this warning that's down there towards Buffalo Springs, southeast of Buffalo Springs, about to make its way into the far southeastern portions of the county. This is also, it's fairly easterly at this time, but it might be starting to make that southeasterly turn, which is why you saw this original warning more on a southeasterly path. That was what the forecast models have been showing today, is it started northeast, gradually became more easterly in the storm pass, and then eventually more southeasterly. Right now, Sunset, you're not included in the tornado warning, but if this storm continues to make its way down to the southeast, it has the potential for some tennis ball-sized hail. So you might not be in the tornado warnings, but you still have a chance for some very large hail making its way into the southern portions of Montague County. Now, of course, we still have our tornado warning that does Montague proper. I mean, overall, I think Montague proper, because it hasn't really made that southeast turn yet with the rotational area, and I still believe it's probably right in there just east of Stoneburg. And once again, I want to say this real quick, too. We have not gotten a confirmation in a while that there's anything on the ground. We had one earlier when it was in the eastern portions of Clay County. We haven't gotten a confirmation since of anything on the ground. So even though we have the rotational areas, we haven't heard of anything confirmed since.
It's interesting, like you said, Michael, they issued the warning for all of Montague County, but that storm really just seems to be keeping its eastward motion that they said. So I'm curious as to. Well, I'm guessing they were expecting the southeast turn.
Yeah, because they're using warn on forecast a lot now, and the warn on forecast is basically showing what forecast models have been showing the storms are going to do, and they take that to account for how they issue the warnings.
Right.
Let's see here. I'm going to take a glance at velocity here. Let's go ahead. Yeah, let's go back to the Apple TV because we can see the rotational signature, and it's really staying north. And, oh, wow. Okay. I also want to point this out. You got some pretty tight rotation, much tighter rotation than it was earlier on the southern portions of Clay County. So keep that in mind for far southern Clay at this point. I mean, here's Bellevue. This is way down towards the border of Jack County. And then into the southwestern portions of Montague County. That we do have some rotation being shown right there on that storm. Now, this rotation up towards Nakona, it's broad. It is broad, and what I mean by that is that you don't see a ton of tightness there, and obviously that means the same thing. But the greens and the reds being right up next to each other, that's what I'm looking for the most. And you do see some of that, but what we really want to see is some of these really strong winds next to each other. You see how the red, the brighter reds, the pinks here, that's going to be showing stronger winds. It's a little bit further away from the center of where the rotation is, and the greens, the same thing. It's a little bit further away. I mean, that's a little bit closer to where the reds are. But what I want to see I don't want to see it, but what we want to see for a strong tornado possible is when these pinks and greens start to get closer together and you really start to squeeze that, because you got some weaker velocities right there in the center. But still, right now in Nakona, you still need to stay in your safe spot. I know you probably have some strong winds, at least in the what we call the rear flank downdraft of this storm on the west side. That's coming through right now. But then that's going to start making its way off to the east after that. Quick glance down to the southern one. Here's Montague proper. Here's our rotational area. This one's much messier than the northern one. And you got the greens that are going towards the radar. You got the reds going away from the radar. I mean, it's just to the west of Montague proper. So if it stays on a more easterly path, Montague proper, it's going to be approaching you here in about 10 minutes with that rotational signature.
I would also say, Michael, we've been seeing it stay on this easterly path. And, I don't want to, frighten people if it's not warranted. But if you're in St. Joe, if that thing keeps on the easterly path, you guys could also be in this. So you're not in the warning yet, but I would just say stay aware as of right now.
No, absolutely. Everyone in Montague County, even if you're technically not in this tornado warning, you need to be aware, because then we also have that one that's a little further to the south I was just talking about. I could clip the southern edge of Montague. That's not included in this one. So basically all of Montague County, you really should be, if you're not in your safe spot right now, you should be thinking about where that spot is.
Exactly, because we've seen all the time, Michael. The warnings can change on a dime. That they can say, like we're saying, that rotation you're looking at right now, right by Montague proper, that is moving in a much more easterly direction. So we're going to put St. Joe in the tornado warning. That could happen at any time.
Yeah. So this is still pretty far north of Bowie. And Bowie, I know you're starting to hear lightning and thunder. You're probably starting to hear some rain, too, at this time. Let me go and check y'all out here on I got everything on my laptop in an easily viewed area. Yeah, you're probably starting to hear some of the lightning and thunder. You're still in a tornado warning. I still want you to be in your safe spot in Bowie. But right now, the main rotational signature is a little bit further off to the north from you. And then in Nakona, still stay in your safe spot at least for another 5 to 10 minutes. Let's let this rotational signature that looks pretty large make its way all the way east out of the county before we do anything else. So let me go ahead and check out chat. Let's go back to our regular product here for a moment. Take a glance at that.
I just wanted to point your attention to the Fort Worth chat, Michael. 8 miles south of Nakona. Wall cloud just west of Montague appears to not be touching down. So yeah, it appears to be trying, but it's not hitting that yet.
So that's the storm that we were just talking about, where I showed you the rotational signature. It's just west of Montague proper. That's going to be where they're seeing the wall cloud in that rotational signature. They're continuing the tornado warning, but right now we have no reports of anything on the ground. We did have a report of a tornado near Bellevue earlier on, but right now nothing reported on the ground. So Nakona, you're still included in this warning. Let's go ahead and zoom back in. I'm trying to think. I'm blanking a little bit. Who's in the northwestern portions of Montague? So
Bonita, Caps Corner.
No. I want to look at northwestern. I want to clear some people out. Ringgold, you're no longer in a tornado warning.
Okay.
Stoneburg, you're no longer in a tornado warning. Belcherville, you're also no longer in a tornado warning. This is all now moved to the east of you. So we're now not as focused on the western portions of Montague. We're a little bit more focused on the central and eastern portions. Let's go ahead and look a little further to the south now. Let's go and glance back down. Nakona, you need to stay in your safe spot. Bonita, you need to stay in your safe spot. If you live in a rural home, I know there's plenty of rural homes in northeastern Montague County. You also want to be in that safe spot this time. Appreciate you, Josh. Bowie, you are still included in tornado warning. I know this is mostly to the north of you. Thank you. This is still mostly, the rotational area is still mostly to the north of you, even though you're starting to hear some lightning, some rain, some thunder as well. That's going to be overall, it likely does stay to the north, but let's give it another 5 minutes. Let's play it safe and stay in your safe spot. Salona, you're also going to be it's still a little bit to the north of you. Forestburg, I want you to stay on alert here, because if it does start to make that southeasterly turn, it could get a little bit closer to you. We always say it's one of the things that's well coined is respect the polygon. If you're in the polygon for the tornado warning, you want to be in your safe spot until you are cleared from that warning. Let's see here.
The one up north, Michael, just one of the latest update, they did say the storm is slowing down. Now they've got it moving east at around 25 miles per hour. So let's give everyone this So Caps Corner, it's now going to be around 8:08 p.m. Leon, that's out of our county, but Leon, you'll be at around 8:21, and then Jimtown 8:28.
Okay. So and let's subtract a few minutes from those. So Caps Corner, I think it's probably going to be closer to about 8:04, even though it is slowing down some. Leon, that's going to be outside of our counties by that point, so we'll let the next station over to the east handle that. Man. All right, let's look a little further to the southwest now.
Yep.
Again, I want to look at this other storm because we've been talking about the tornado warning ones for a while. This one does show some signs of rotation near Post Oak. It doesn't look fantastic on the velocities, but you see all the pinks and purples popping up there. That's showing really high reflectivity. There's a good chance we could see some tennis ball-sized hail produced from the storm just north of Post Oak at this time, and it likely could have a little bit on the north side of town. If you live in a rural home in northeastern portions of Jack County, or if you live just north of Truce there in Jack County, you're probably going to see some large hail making its way towards you, because that is a very large hail core, likely producing some of that very large hail that we were just talking about, and the potential for some 70-mile-per-hour wind gusts. Okay, so new information. So we still don't have anything confirmed on the ground. We have wall clouds being reported on these storms. Earlier, of course, like I said, we had that tornado warning for the tornado observed near Bellevue, but we haven't seen anything confirmed since. So we just don't have a lot of spotter information. I think a lot of that is because there's quite a bit of rain around these storms too. So even though if you can see the wall clouds, sometimes it's hard to really pick out the difference between the rain or maybe a funnel that's coming down. Some of these rotational areas they're not textbook, let me put it that way. They're definitely strong enough to warrant tornado warnings, but it's not a textbook situation where we're like, oh, there's definitely got to be something on the ground at this time. It looks just a little bit messy, like I've been saying. It's not perfect.
Yeah, the edges of these storms, heavy rain's now falling in Bowie, so you guys are just starting to get the edge of these thunderstorms. You guys are about to see heavy rain. That rotation signature still a slight turn to the southeast, maybe.
Yeah, I've seen what you're saying. Yeah, it might be going a little bit further southeast. The entire leading edge of this thing is kind of getting that messy look. It's almost like it's not really a QLCS situation along these lines because they're supercells, but it almost looks like QLCS situations at times where you're kind of getting some of that velocity going. You got a lot of inbound velocity going all across the edge of the storm where we have outbound. So you see how it kind of looks like a line at this point, but really what we have is a supercell right here and a supercell further off to the north, and that's where the tornado warnings have been issued. But you got kind of a line that's forming off across from, all the way from Oneida down towards Bowie and even further to the southwest into Clay County. And you got a lot of air inflow that's moving towards these storms, and as that air moves towards it and the storm and the air with them are moving away from it, that's how you get the little spinning action that occurs for the rotational areas. And that's what we're seeing all along this storm. And we're not seeing anything that is necessarily, once again, textbook. It's all messy. The best signature is the one that right now is a little bit east of Nakona. Let's look a little further off to the north again. The best rotational signature is stuck in all this rain. And so there's something on the ground right now. I would bet it's probably near Nakona, probably more to the northeast of Nakona, and probably just to the northwest of Oneida, probably just right here in the middle where you're seeing that hail, a little bit of hail there in the pinks. But it's messy. It doesn't look perfect, but there's enough velocity there that you still have to watch out for. Let's zoom all the way back out again. Let's take a broad view. Now let's look a little further off to the west. We've talked about these storms quite a bit. Is there anything out to the west still?
No, there's a couple of cells there trying to form, but they kind of are on a weakening trend.
Yeah, these are some little pop-up cells in Archer County. You got northeastern Throckmorton moving to northwestern Young. Really, this area, we're not expecting severe weather. I just wanted to take a quick glance and make sure we're not missing anything. You always want to watch out for everybody, even though you got tornado warnings. You want to make sure everything's going under control.
All right, well, we got a new warning there for the one by Buffalo Springs.
Yeah, that's going to be Fort Worth issuing theirs.
Yep.
Because Fort Worth. So Truce, you're in this one.
60 mile per hour winds and 1.5 inch hail.
So they went down to ping pong balls versus Norman that issued for tennis balls. And it doesn't look like it's weakened that much. I still Yeah, ping pong ball size hail definitely possible. So Truce, you're getting closer to Crafton. Sunset, you're in this new warning. I don't want to rule out the chance for hail larger than that because it does have some pretty good reflectivity on it.
Mm-hmm.
So, trying to take glances and see if there's anything that looks like it's cleaned up at all. Or
I mean, we've got nothing to the northwest.
Yeah.
Nothing to.
Yeah, let's zoom back into Montague because I think this is really going to be the end of our chances. I know a lot of people are still in tornado watch here until 9 o'clock. You haven't been cleared from it, but overall, I think after these storms move out of Montague County, it's done for our part of the region in our market. I think most the other activity is not going to become severe. This is really our main batch of severe weather that was supposed to move through.
Michael, we've been watching this all day. I mean, and we've seen so many storms try to. You and I have been talking about it. They've been trying to form and then they'll intensify, but then they won't go further. This has really been the only one that just kind of been hanging around as it's moved through. This moved pretty much from our western counties all the way into Montague County. And right when it got to Montague County is when we really saw that intensification.
Yeah, it's been kind of strange because we were really expecting more of that intensification in the central portions of the area. But overall, it took until we got to the eastern portions when that low-level shear really started kicking up finally, and we started getting some of these things to spin up a little bit more. Let's go ahead and go back over to Apple TV for a second. Let's look at some of these little velocity signatures. So right now, it's kind of got a mixture here. You got, this was the main rotational area that was up near Nakona. It's weakened quite a bit. You still have the strong outbound winds and the rear flank downdraft, but the inbound winds look significantly weaker. Those light, I mean, it's like the dark green. We won't really see those brighter greens or even goes up to blue when it gets really strong. We're not seeing that anymore. It's very broad rotation. You get a couple areas, though, right near Montague proper. I mean, this is an area that's just northwest of Montague proper. That actually is going to be more clockwise rotation. I would not expect that to be anything that drops on the ground, but it does look a little bit menacing when you see those bright greens and bright pinks next to each other. But overall, I would not expect that to produce anything because, well, it's clockwise rotation. Our tornadoes are generally counterclockwise.
Yeah, it just you said, Michael, it's just very, very messy because you've got, like you said, you've got all those reds and greens next to each other, but you want it a bit more organized than that because if you look just east of St. Joe, you've got a bright green and a bright red, but it's not organized. It's just kind of there. You know what I mean? Yeah, and Fort Worth was even just saying 2 broad circulations in Montague County, one east of Nakona and another near Montague proper. Overall, I mean, and they said this too, just like we were talking about, both have weakened, and they're not expecting, if this trend continues, they're not expecting anything downstream. What they mean by downstream is more warnings that are outside of Montague County moving off to the east. I believe, I'm blanking on the county name, but blanking off to or moving off to the east. That'd be Cook County, I believe. That was just one of the warnings I had earlier. Okay, so it would be Cook County. Overall, if it keeps this weakening trend, we might even go back to programming, but we're going to stick with it for a moment, make sure these things don't ramp back up, and then if it looks like it's going to stay weak, then we're going to go ahead and go back to programming. If they strengthen again, of course, we'll come back. But we're going to give it a minute just to be safe. Just a couple more scans probably just to see what they do, but...
do we still have Kyle online? Let's get an update from Kyle. Kyle, are you still there?
Hey, Mike. Michael, we are moving southeast just a little bit. We're going to go over to Sunset and watch these storms. I'm going to have to agree with you on this. It's really messy. This isn't textbook at all. And if there is anything, it's going to be in the rain core itself.
Yeah, it's anything that pops up is going to be rain wrapped, which is why I don't want to completely rule out the possibility of something there. Because, I mean, the spotters are going to have a hard time seeing it if there was something on the ground. But these rotations are so broad that I just don't see anything on the ground right now. But we'll still give it a minute and make sure nothing ramps up. Kyle, you've been dealing with a lot of hail. Be careful in Sunset. You got some large hail coming towards you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, let's go back to radar here for a second. So the rotation continues to weaken too, especially on the one that's further north, the eastern Montague, or the one that's east of Nakona rather. You got a lot of gray now in between the greens and the reds. That's going to be continuing broadening rotation. It's getting wider. It probably still has a wall cloud, and probably still have a wall cloud that's closer to Monte down here too. But nothing that's really a strong indicator of powerful rotation or anything on the ground at this time. As we've been saying, I think it's the word of the day. It looks messy. It just isn't what we normally look for with good supercells.
It is important to note, though, that just because we're not seeing the rotation doesn't mean that those winds in there, they are powerful winds. So there's still, you know, you want to be careful of that, like, because we're not talking, it's not like we're seeing 20, 30 mile per hour winds. We're probably still seeing, you know, a good 40, 50 mile per hour wind gusts in there.
Yeah, and I'm sure anyone that's been caught up in, especially in this one that's further to the north, that's been, you know, moved through Monte, I'm sure, or moved through Nocona. I'm sure in Nocona you felt some really strong winds earlier. Right now, the